Right now, on to the point. At risk of losing housing voucher assistance. Sacramento's mayor making this promise first on ABC 10.
Nobody's going to lose their voucher who's unsheltered.
So what's being done to address the issue? Plus, from Davis to LA, hundreds of UC workers walk off the job.
We will start withholding our labor starting today.
Why they're striking over recent campus protests.
Just as we're entering the unofficial start to summer, big heat building by the end of the week.
And as we celebrate our Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander communities, how one local business owner is reviving a Japanese landmark. Thank you for joining us on To The Point. I'm Alex Bell. Rising rents and a lack of funding are threatening Sacramento's Housing Choice Voucher Program. And we're talking about what used to be called Section 8 housing. And as we reported, Sacramento's Housing Voucher Program is in need of more money, and the waiting list has been closed, among other changes. But tonight, first on ABC 10, we can report one solution is in the works.
It's hard enough being homeless, but for nearly 200 unhoused people, a glimmer of hope was shattered earlier this year.
This is a really difficult time for everybody.
Mary Liz Paulson is director of the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency's Housing Choice Voucher Program, formerly known as Section 8. With federal dollars from HUD, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, people in Sacramento County can apply to SHRA for a rent subsidy.
The voucher program is a very large, very complex program.
But in a May 7th meeting with Sacramento City Council members, Paulson reported SHRA had decided to close the voucher waiting list and go back to the pre-pandemic policy of not allowing voucher extensions. In other words, if someone hasn't found housing within 4 months, SHRA will no longer grant extensions. She cited uncertainty about how much money HUD would grant them this year and the rising cost of rents throughout much of Sacramento County.
The fair market rents increased 55% between 2020 and 2024.
When SHRA made this change back in March, about 700 families had a voucher but had not yet found housing and would no longer be granted an extension. Of them, 175 were experiencing homelessness.
We got 175 people out there that have vouchers. Why isn't that a priority? It must be a priority.
It's a huge punch in the gut, especially for a lot of the community members that I represent, because they're very reliant on these, and then especially as we think about homelessness and our need to get folks into housing that they can afford.
Since that May 7th meeting, Mayor Darrell Steinberg tells ABC 10 the city, SHRA, and the county have met twice to come up with a plan to support these nearly 200 unhoused voucher holders.
SHRA has agreed that they are not going to have those vouchers expire. They're going to extend them for the people, at least who are in the latter part of their 60-day process. They've committed to me that nobody's going to lose their voucher who's unsheltered, as long as they're engaged in a real intensive process with all those who are responsible to help find them housing. We cannot allow an expiration date to have them lose that voucher.
I reached out to SHRA to confirm all of this. A spokesperson sent a statement saying SHRA takes seriously its mission to house homeless families and will assist eligible families who have found a rental unit. SHRA is looking forward to partnering with the city and the county to provide housing search support for families with vouchers.
All right, let's bring in Becca Habegger, who has been following this for us. Becca, first question, what about people who have a voucher and have housing? What does all this mean for them?
Yeah, those folks definitely are probably watching this and saying, what about me? Well, I asked that of the mayor today. He emphatically told me they're not kicking anybody out of their existing housing due to funding concerns. And at that May 7th meeting, SHRA was clear. The reason they've frozen the waiting list and have stopped extending unused vouchers is so they can put the money they do have toward continuing to subsidize the rent for people in the program who already have housing.
And Becca, can you explain a little bit the amount that HUD is going to be giving SHRA? Because we do know that amount now, right?
Yes, we've learned that since that May 7th meeting. It's about a 19% increase over last year's allotment. Mayor Steinberg points out there are tens of thousands of people on the now frozen voucher waiting list here. And Steinberg argues we need a lot more federal dollars to meet the need here. Now, I've reached out to SHRA for more detailed answers to a list of questions I sent them, including about funding, but I haven't yet heard back on those.
Yeah, and Becca's going to follow this, so we'll update you as we get those answers. Becca, thank you. And just hours ago, dozens of people gathered at the Capitol for a march in support of Camp Resolution. And that's the self-governed homeless camp off Colfax Street in Sacramento. The camp and the city have been going back and forth after the city sent a letter saying they would terminate the site lease and require people to move out. A group representing the camp sued the city, and advocates marching in support of the camp today were joined by Sacramento mayoral candidate Flo Kofer. Here's what she had to say.
City said they were going to shut this site down without any plans for where people were supposed to go, which is terrifying. And it just undoes so much of the trust and rapport building that our city is supposed to be doing with our unhoused neighbors to be able to help address the challenge that is really the #1 issue in Sacramento.
The camp was supposed to turn the site over to the city by June 1st, but Camp Resolution residents say they don't plan on leaving. And you can read more about the timeline of Camp Resolution on our website, abc10.com/tothepoint. Law enforcement activity in downtown Sacramento stopped traffic at several points this afternoon. The Sacramento Sheriff's Office says 2 teens with guns led detectives on a pursuit from South Sacramento and onto the freeway. They say they eventually crashed their car, which did catch on fire. The teens were caught and deputies recovered 3 firearms. Right now, 5 people are in the hospital after a shooting in Sacramento's Meadowview neighborhood. Officers say it happened around 8 p.m. last night in the area of Meadowview Road and Coral Gables Court. Officers arrived to find 5 victims with at least 1 gunshot wound. 4 were adults and 1 was a teenage girl. It's still not clear what led up to the shooting, and Sacramento police are asking anyone with information to give them a call. University of California academic workers across the state are on strike, and among them, UC Davis academic workers. ABC 10's Alicia Machado has more on what prompted the strike and how officials are responding tonight.
The workers united will never be defeated.
Marching through UC Davis, academic workers with UAW Local 4811 and their supporters speaking out against the UC system's response to pro-Palestine campus protests. The union represents 48,000 academic workers across the state, including 5,700 at UC Davis. Among them, grad student workers, academic researchers, and undergrad tutors.
We're here today because of the retaliation and the repression that the UC administration has pursued against workers across the UC system. We will start withholding our labor starting today.
Strikers claim the UC system committed unfair labor practices during its response to the protests on campuses across the state. Among their list of unfair practices, they say police officers forcefully removed and arrested peaceful protesters at UCLA, UC Irvine, and UC San Diego. They also cite disciplining and suspending employees who engaged in protests. Among their demands,
giving amnesty to the workers that have been disciplined, harassed, and punished and arrested for their peaceful protesting.
UCLA also striking Tuesday, joining UC Santa Cruz, who began striking last Monday. This comes as finals are set to begin for students next week. We reached out to UC Davis and the University of California President's Office today about the strike. In a statement, UC Davis said, "Our undergraduates are preparing for their final exams after a challenging year, and we are committed to maintaining a campus environment that supports their success." They referred us to the Office of the President, who pointed to their recent statements. The most recent, a May 23rd statement that said in part, "The university remains disappointed that the UAW is engaging in an illegal strike in violation of our contract's mutually agreed no-strike clauses to advance issues that have no bearing on employment at UC." Adding that they are now working with campus administrators to minimize disruption as much as possible. In Davis, Alicia Machado, ABC 10.
Next on To The Point, closing arguments wrap in Trump's hush money trial when a jury could start deliberating.
We are starting to see some big heat building into the forecast, including an excessive heat risk next week.
And later, how one local man is paying homage to the past and present by reviving a Japanese landmark.
I took multiple trips to Japan as I got older, and then I started to realize, their culture and how it works, and and the society there and here is very, very, very different.
All right, let's get to Chief Meteorologist Monica Woods with a look at our forecast. Things not too different today. But man, are they going to change by the end of the week.
Just wait. It is going to feel like summer before too long. Yeah, temperatures back in the 90s before we get to the end of the work week. So we are going to see this temperature trend change dramatically. We've been right about average over the Memorial holiday weekend. In fact, well below average on Saturday. It was just fabulous weather to enjoy the outdoors with that nice onshore flow. Still have a trickle of that for tonight, and that's going to keep us with a really pretty evening. Most of the showers for the Sierra east of the crest. We have the clear skies. Just a few high clouds drifting on through. Again, with that nice south wind continuing for this evening. Temperatures dropping into the 60s by 10 p.m. We start off tomorrow in the 50s, but what we're going to be tracking, gusty winds Thursday, elevated fire danger, and our first 100s in the forecast next week. We start to see this ridge of high pressure building into our Thursday as that low pressure system departs. That's what's going to bring in at least the first hint of warmth coming into the forecast, as well as the gusty conditions and the elevated fire danger. But next week is when we really start to feel that summer-like heat with highs in the 100s. For a lot of us, the first time this year will be hit next week. Highs near 70 tomorrow for the Sierra with 80s to near 90 for the foothills. We'll keep it in the 70s along the coast. We start seeing some more 90s in the forecast for tomorrow. Morning lows, though, in the 50s. Should still be a really pretty morning to enjoy that walk. As we head into the 5-day regional forecast, you can certainly see how Thursday and Friday are going to stand out in that regional forecast. But the 10-day outlook for us, the big standout next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're right around 100.
All right, Monica, I don't know if we're ready for all that yet. All right, next on To the Point. Trump's hush money trial is going to a jury. What happened in court today is both sides presented closing arguments. Welcome back. Closing arguments have wrapped in the historic criminal trial against former President Donald Trump, with both sides getting their final chance to make their case to the jury. Here's more on what was said in court. The prosecution and defense getting their final chance to try and sway the jury in their favor in the hush money payment trial against former President Donald Trump. In their closing argument, prosecutors attempting to convince all 12 jurors to convict Trump on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records when he ordered his former attorney, Michael Cohen, to pay off adult film actress Stormy Daniels in exchange for her silence about their alleged sexual encounter. But defense attorney Todd Blanche telling the jury Trump is innocent, calling prosecutors' theory of the case absurd and the testimony from their witnesses irrelevant. Over the course of a month, the prosecution calling 20 witnesses to the stand, including Cohen and Daniels, arguing that Trump tried to hide damaging information from voters ahead of the 2016 election, and then hiding that effort to influence the election by labeling Cohen's reimbursement as a legal expense.
They have another witness here being Stormy Daniels that they're arguing is trying to extort the former president. The credibility of both these witnesses amount to how big this story was and why they needed to suppress it, and also the mechanics of how they did that. So attacking these two witnesses, I think, are beneficial for the defense.
The defense calling Cohen the human embodiment of reasonable doubt, even calling him the gloat or the greatest liar of all time. They also tried to distance Trump from those invoices and vouchers at the heart of the case, and insisting Trump was too busy to look at the checks he was signing. Blanche even going as far as to say you cannot send someone to prison based on the words of Michael Cohen. Prosecutors saying the defense focused on Cohen as a deflection, adding that Trump chose Cohen as his fixer, saying he got the jobs the defendant wanted to keep quiet. Trump denying that sexual encounter with Daniels and pleading not guilty.
This is a dark day in America. We have a rigged court case that should have never been brought.
Jury deliberations are expected to start tomorrow morning. And the man convicted of attempting to hold former Speaker Nancy Pelosi hostage and attacking her husband with a hammer was resentenced today. The judge gave David DePape the same 30-year prison sentence she had given him earlier this month. She reopened a limited portion of the sentencing proceedings in order to allow him to address the court, which she failed to do the first time. He apologized for his crime and said he should have left the house when he realized the former speaker was not there. All right, as we continue to celebrate Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, the Asian American and Pacific Islander Night Market is a celebration of Asian culture. From food to entertainment, there is something for everyone to enjoy, and one of the food vendors at the night market will be Fuji. ABC 10's Monica Coleman has the story of the owner behind the historic Japanese restaurant.
From Bearsong Elementary to JFK High, Russell Okubo grew up in the halls of Sacramento schools.
As I got older, just being taught family values and consideration for others.
A simple life. That's how Russell would describe his childhood. Home before the streetlights turned on and constant family dinners, but challenges did face him and those who look like him.
I'm third generation Japanese. So our parents were interned in camp, the second generation after World War II. So when they got out of camp and they started having families, we all got names, the third generation, Rick, Dan, Mike, Mary. Some of us got maybe a Japanese middle name, but they tried to Americanize us as best as possible. They never spoke Japanese in the house at all, so we lost that value.
Russell says he felt at times he missed out on parts of his heritage as his parents never spoke Japanese in the home in hopes to adjust to life in America. So he set out to reconnect with his roots.
What I did was I took multiple trips to Japan as I got older. And then I started to realize, their culture and how it works. And, and the society there and here is very, very, very different. Here, it's almost a very relaxed society, where in Japan, it's very punctual. There's a lot of consideration for others. Like some Japanese almost put themselves second.
On his first trip, Russell says he felt out of place, recalling feeling divided on his heritage and where he was born.
A little bit of fish out of water. I was still pretty young, and I had an incident on an airplane where I'm filling out my immigration cards, and then I get to immigration, and I wrote it on the card. It says nationality. I wrote Japanese. So I present it to the guy at the immigration booth, and he returns my paper. He says, "You're not Japanese, you're American, change it."
To stay connected to his culture, he opened up Fuji, a restaurant that originally was one of the first Japanese restaurants in Sacramento. Today, the heirlooms of his nephew's grandmother decorate the walls. Language lessons in the bathroom.
Question number 1. How do you say tuna in Japanese? Maguro.
As he continues to pay homage to the original restaurant and what it meant to his community.
This building that we're in now was kind of a special place because I was here as a kid, 15, 16, 17 years old, because Fuji Sukiyaki was here for 38 years. And the Fujita family ended up retiring, and they closed, and this building was vacant for about 7-8 years. So I thought, I would bring it back. So, I had to call Bob and get the blessing and say, I have an idea. I want to kind of bring it back, to bring back what was here for so many years.
Located on Broadway, Fuji shares the name and concept of the Japanese restaurant that previously occupied the spot. Keeping the stories of those that came before him is also important to Russell, so that the next generation knows the shoulders of their ancestors that they stand on.
A lot of the people my parents' age are depleting, because like my father's going to be 99. So that Nisei generation, they're slowly, passing. So there's not a lot left of them, the original Japanese. One thing I know about Japanese Americans, most of them didn't complain about, I was interned, I had a horrible life and poor me. They never did the poor me thing. They just said, we got to work harder.
And you can taste Fuji and other delicious Asian food at the AAPI Night Market on May 31st. That event goes from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Capitol Mall right here in Sacramento. And you can read more information on our website, abc10.com. We're back after this short break. Coming up tomorrow on To The Point, we are sharing the story behind some of Sacramento's strawberry farms. Right now, there are over 100 strawberry farms in Sacramento, but what you may not know is many of them are run by Yumian families. Yumian people are indigenous Chinese people who fled conflict and were caught in the crossfire of the Vietnam War. After being granted refuge in the United States, many families learned the trade of strawberry farming.
Yumian Strawberry Farms is a cultural phenomenon in Sacramento. It's part of our identity as Yumian Americans, and I think it's part of our identity as Sacramentans.
But now Yumian strawberry farming is facing a succession crisis as first-generation farmers are aging out. Tomorrow at 6:30 on To The Point, meet one local strawberry farmer who shares her story of survival. You definitely don't want to miss it. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us. If you have something you think we should be looking into, make sure to reach out to me and the team. Have a great night, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Hey, it's Alex. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. The To The Point team and I love hearing from you, and I hope that you'll stay in touch. And don't forget, you can always email me and the team at tothepoint@abc10.com, or you can even send us a text message at 916-321-3310.